like understanding who I was and why I was the way that I was until I took an Enneagram test. And it was really interesting to see who I was. So then I shared it with everyone because I wanted to figure out who they were. And there were a lot of commonalities between people that I loved, people that I didn't necessarily jive with. And I started
Yep.
realizing, like, oh, well, they are this. And the reason why I'm not getting along with them is because it's more about me and what I have going on. And if I can change up the way that I'm acting or ever I'm feeling, then I can have a wonderful relationship with them. And so
Yeah.
that has been the best part, is that I've gotten to love deeper and be more empathetic. As a 3, I am an Enneagram 3 diehard, which, when I'm at my best, I am eager, I'm endearing, I'm empathetic, I love a lot, I'm goal oriented, and I'm very organized, and I am happy. I'm very like extroverted, I guess. And then when I'm
Hmm.
at my worst, I'm very self-centered. I'm very introverted. I think I can do everything by myself. I am not empathetic at all. I'm very goal-oriented, but not in an effective way, meaning that I've got a lot of shiny objects I'm reaching for, and I like to toot my own horn. So it's been interesting to it allows me to shut up sometimes and get to know more people. So with that said, I'm going to be quiet so that you can coach me and teach me how to.
No, that's great. I love it. Yeah. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing just a little bit more about, who you are and, how you've kind of learned about being a type 3, because that's so important for us to really understand ourselves, because most people see the world as if everyone is seen through the same lenses. Like we all have these clear lenses and we see it the same way. And so we get really irritated when other people are thinking differently or doing things differently than we would. Like, why are you why are you like this? But once we realize, oh, wait, we're wearing completely different lenses and we're seeing, interpreting, and reacting to life through the lens that we see, which is different, it helps us to have that understanding, compassion, hopefully empathy, like you were saying, and some grace and mercy for others. But then also to come alongside the other person and be curious, asking great questions. So, what areas, before we dive a little bit more into the type 3, what other areas, maybe relationally, have you seen the Enneagram help you?
Yes, so I am a 3, and at my worst, I'm a 9, which is the peacemaker, very chill, relaxed. But my people are 9s.
Yeah.
Is a 9. My best friend is a 9, and so it's very interesting to see that when I'm at my worst, I am that. But because they are a version of me that it almost calms me down. It's like we are better off together that way.
Yeah.
So that's been the most interesting thing for me.
Mhm.
And I used to be like, if you're a this, then we're not going to be friends.
Yeah.
But I'm not like that anymore. I'm just like, oh, now I really need to. Now I know that I work better with this number if I do these things. And like you said,
Mhm.
listen more to them and try to understand them better.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Relational dynamics in the Enneagram is so powerful, because we're really wanting good connection with others. And to be able to use a tool that's so clear is really remarkable. So I'm glad that, you're already kind of seeing the benefits of that as well. So, okay, let's get the slides back up. Let's see. Abby, I'll let you go. There you go. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do today, Casey, is in our book, More Than Your Number, we proposed a new theory of the Enneagram called Enneagram Internal Profile. So, what this really looks like is that you not only are your main type, but you also have connecting parts. There's actually, we all have parts within us, and it sounds kind of strange at times, except for we talk this way all the time, right? So, let's say you're going to be you've already have on your calendar that you're supposed to go to dinner and a movie with some friends. And that day you're like, man, there's a part of me that really wants to go. And there's a part of me that doesn't. So we speak this way all the time. So we do have parts within us. And the Enneagram makes this very clear, and it helps us to know why we have competing thoughts and feelings and feel pulled in different directions. And we want to know this not only because it's helpful to know how we get pulled in different directions, but it also helps us to know if we're doing well or if we're not doing well. And we kind of put it in language of, are we aligned with truth or are we misaligned with truth? So, with that being said, what we show is that you have 6 connecting parts. Okay, so when we start with your type as a type 3, not only is that your main type with its core motivations, so your main type is the driving force in all that you do. And it's based on the 4 core motivations for your Enneagram type. So as a type 3, your core fear, and you could tell me when I'm done with this if these sound true. So your core fear is failing, being exposed as unsuccessful, not being worthy, not being admired by others, by not having efficiencies, but you desire to be goal oriented, to get things done, to accomplish, to be seen and admired, have high status and high regard with others. But the type 3 struggles with the core weakness of deceit. Now, deceit for the 3 means that they deceive themselves into believing they're only the image they present to others. And therefore, they feel they have to shapeshift and put on a certain persona and embellish the truth so others will see and admire them for whatever group that is. So they will shapeshift into whatever group will be perceived as successful. And because they feel like, well, if I don't put my best foot forward and you don't see me as successful or as admirable, who am I then? Do I have worth? Do I have value? But what type 3s long for, what their heart longs to hear and experience is you are loved for simply being you. You don't have to accomplish all those things. You are loved for simply being you. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, for sure. Validation is part of my life, and I think they talk about childhood trauma, and like I think that's why I can be at my worst, is because sometimes I think, wow, well, maybe if I was more validated when I was in school, then I would feel better about who I am now. But I 100% resonate with that. And when I'm at my worst, my self-worth is completely tied up in my accomplishments, and that's what I meant by tooting my own horn. So yes, I completely resonate with that. But
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and what's so interesting is that 3s will toot their horn, and people that aren't a 3 and maybe a type that is very much on the opposite end, like they're not going to toot their horn, might think like, why are you tooting your horn? Calm down, or like be more humble. But what they don't understand is what's going on inside a 3. The 3 is feeling like, well, you weren't there when I accomplished these things, or you didn't know, you may not know this. You may not have a sense of why I could be valued by you or why I could be loved by you. And if you don't know these things, then you're not going to love or value me. And so for the 3, it's not so much like I just want to toot my horn just to toot my horn. It's like I want to be valued and loved and seen and admired, but they think it's based on the accomplishments. And so that's why they put those forward. Does that resonate with you? Does that seem true?
Yes, for sure. Whenever I'm filling out my Instagram bio or anything like that, I'm like, okay, what do I need to put? How do I put all my accomplishments in one place so people will value me? And it's very interesting that you say that, because I think sometimes we forget that we have value beyond our accomplishments. And I know that I do, which is why my husband is so helpful, because he values me whether I'm successful or not. Especially, and for me, it's success in the business world. That's where I find it.
Yeah. Well, that's so great. Okay. So your main type, the type 3, is again that driving force. And in your main type, when we talk about EIP or Enneagram Internal Profile, there are 2 parts within your main type. So there's the wounded child and the beloved child. So the wounded child, and actually let's go to this next slide.
I know this when I said childhood trauma, by the way.
Oh yeah. Well, hang in there. So the wounded child is the vulnerable and tender part of your heart that has experienced harm and has tried its best since childhood to protect you, but it is still ill-equipped to do so in helpful and healthy ways. So when we look at this from like a Christian perspective, because that's, like for your Enneagram coach, that's how we do things. Though other people can put different words to it if that's not, their faith. But we put words to, like in the scripture, this is called the flesh, the old self, the enslaved self, the blind self, the dead self. And so the picture I want people to realize is, this is that little child that we were. And during those years, it was doing the best that it could with all of the strategies that it has as a type 3 child to secure itself, to get love. And so as a type 3 child, this little girl is really striving for achieving, to put her best foot forward, to put a best image, hoping she'll be loved and admired and have worth and value. Now, what she really hopes is that she's loved for simply being her, that she doesn't have to do all these things. But it seems in her world, no, I actually do. I have to accomplish. I have to be the best. Otherwise, I'm not going to be loved. And so she's just trying to do the best she can. And so a lot of times what we do though is we shame that part of ourselves and we push it away and we minimize it. We try to get it to change because it can produce a lot of harmful things, right? Like, this is the part of us that is ill-equipped and it's trying to do things that everyone else is like, no thanks. But she's just trying her best. So she's trying to protect and provide. But we do have a beloved part of ourselves. So this beloved child is the spirit-filled self that knows their identity in Christ, which leads to a relationship with God that is all satisfying and joyous and overflows into everyday life experiences. So this is what the Bible would call the spirit-filled self, the new creation, the adopted self, it's there twice. Oh, spirit-filled, spirit-led, and alive self. So what's so great about this is that when we are in Christ, we are a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. Now, saying that, we're still on this side of heaven, so we do experience both of these. But when God sees us, he sees this part of us. This is the part that Christ has won for us. But we operate in the mindset usually of the wounded self. And then we shame ourselves, we feel guilty, we condemn ourselves, and it just kind of spirals us out of control. When, if we could recognize the truth, is that we are the beloved child and that we don't have to accomplish or achieve or get to another place. We're already where our heart longs to be. It changes the whole dynamic within ourselves, and we can actually rest and be free and then absorb the love that has already been given to us. So before we go into the connecting parts and stuff, I want to show you what this looks like for the type 3. But just before we even get to how this is represented in the type 3, what does it even feel like to see that there's a wounded child and a beloved child? Does this make sense and feel accurate to you?
Yeah, it's very freeing to know that both of these people can exist in the same body. And as I learn more about the Enneagram, and I realize like when I'm at my best and when I'm at my worst. So this is just, I think, another representation of when I'm at my best, I'm the beloved child. And when I'm at my worst, I'm the wounded child. It's okay to be both. Sometimes I'm both in the same day, but also to love and respect both of those different.
Yeah. And they're both there at the same time. And one thing that I want people to recognize is that the wounded child is out there. She thinks she's all alone. Okay. And a lot of times we can almost visualize this part of us as a certain age or several ages, sometimes like maybe elementary, sometimes teenage age, sometimes maybe in early 20s even. And, so there's a way for us to recognize this part of ourself, but to bring the beloved child in and close by, because the beloved child is there to coach, to lead, to mentor, to guide the wounded child back into what's truth. Now, again, the wounded child's out there thinking she's all alone, has to figure it out, kind of like an orphan. But the beloved child can say, hey, we are not an orphan anymore. We have everything we need right here. And so the more the beloved child can guide and steer the wounded child into truth, the more the wounded child can breathe a sigh of relief, like, oh, you mean I don't have to do all these things? Like I have what my heart longs for, and it changes everything. So let's look at what that looks like for the type 3. So the type 3 wounded child, when it kind of rises up and comes forth, this is where you fear being exposed as incompetent, inefficient, or worthless, and failing to be or appear successful. So you put on that polished persona to impress others and to win their admiration. If you don't receive the admiration, you will embellish that truth, and then you'll also try to cut corners to win others' admiration and affirmation. I was trying to blend those two words together. Does that feel true though? Like, can you almost feel that little part of you like really scared and having to rise up and do all these things?
Yeah, I wish we would have had this talk about 4 years ago when I started my business, because it's exactly who I was, is
Yeah.
that I was so scared of being incompetent that I'm really good at embellishing things on the spot. And I think that comes from being a teacher in the classroom. In order to make
Mhm.
learning fun, sometimes we have to embellish things.
Yep.
And so I think I would have I would have helped myself not hit a lot of roadblocks that I did, um, because it was just I was trying to be someone that I wasn't sure was going to be successful. Now I'm
Right.
excited to see what the beloved child looks like, because I don't feel like I have to do those things anymore. Because you have that little bit of social proof. So I'm interested to see what
Yes.
this one is.
Yeah. Okay, great. So here on the right-hand side is the beloved child. So when your beloved child knows that all achievements and status that it longs for, that you long for, has already been accomplished by Christ and it has already been given to you, you can now rest. You can feel this peace, this overwhelming sense of, okay, like I don't have to. And then the next part actually is what I was going to just about say. So when your heart is aligned with the gospel truth, you will learn to rest in being a human being instead of striving as a human doing. And that's a really big term for threes because the three is always in this doing mode. I have to achieve, I have to accomplish. They're always ready to check off the next thing on their list. And what's amazing about threes is they know exactly what they're wanting to achieve and they then make the steps to get there. And so they're always checking things off. Now, the other thing that threes will do is if they check some or they do something, they'll put it on their list to check it off because it feels great. But the beloved child, what it is there to do is to remind you and your wounded self that you don't have to be this human striving, this human doing, that you actually get to be the beloved child. You get to be a human being and you can actually be in the present moment. That doesn't mean sit back, relax, don't do anything. No, we want you to be the three. God created you to be a three. God created you to excel and to do marvelous things, but we want it to come out of the overflow of the heart that has a sense of peace and ease, that you don't have to accomplish these things in order to be loved and valued. You already are. So can you imagine what would it be like if that beloved child were to come and to speak to the wounded child? What would that dialogue be and how would they even feel for you?
Again, going back to your success is not measured by the validation of others. It's measured by who you are and who you're supposed to be. And I think that the main thing I would want to tell myself is that it's okay to have, it's like I didn't realize that it was okay to be goal oriented and check things off my to do list. I thought I had to be one or the other. I thought I had to be not doing anything, relaxed, chilling,
Right.
in order to be the best version of myself. But internally, I'm screaming, I'm crying, I'm unhappy. My world is chaos that way. And so, what I would say is that it's okay to be doing, but don't do so that others can validate you. You are already validated.
Yeah, exactly. So when the wounded child rises up and is like freaking out, like we've got to do all this stuff, we have to change, we have to cut corners, we have to accomplish, or everyone is going to think that we're a failure or we're unsuccessful, whatever the terminology comes up. When that feeling comes up, that's exactly when we get to bring in the beloved child and say, "Hey, I totally understand why you think this way. It makes sense from your wounded child's perspective. This is how you saw the world." And this is how you tried to help me. Thank you for trying to help me, but that no longer helps me. That no longer works anymore. And it makes you exhausted, it makes me exhausted. So now let's move over here and let's do different because there's lots of different things that a type three can do and all the types to be healthy, but a type three to achieve that sense of serenity and that calmness and that peace, not for the sense of doing nothing, but that sense of having the fullness of being able to inhale and exhale while working, while being successful. And again, the mindset will be less on what others think and versus more on what is the joy, what is the overflow of who you already are. And so I'm glad that you can kind of picture that because the most important part of this is or a couple things is not shaming the wounded child, but inviting the beloved child to guide, to help, to nurture that wounded child. Because really, don't we all just want this wounded child just wants to be heard and attuned to and validated and helped, right?
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.
Especially like thinking back to those 4 years ago when you were starting your business, wouldn't it just meant the world for someone to say, I really do see why you're striving, why you feel so frenetic, why you feel anxious to get things to where you think they need to be, but yet having someone say, but you don't, you get to, but you don't have to for the wrong, for these other reasons. Like you already are loved and cherished. What do you think that would have done back then had you had that? Like, I mean, obviously you became successful, lots of threes become successful, but in the meantime, it's based on a lot of frenetic and anxiety. Even if people aren't seeing it, there's a lot of work going on behind it. If you could go back, what do you think would have been different had you had this message and this understanding?
I don't know that I would have been different just based on my personality because
Mhm.
I am all or nothing. So I would listen, but going back to me not being empathetic and I'm not a good listener when I'm not at my best. And
Mhm.
so I was so set on proving a point when I left the classroom to be this persona of who I wanted to become that I don't think I would have listened. But
Mm.
had I had the knowledge that I have now, I would have given myself a lot more grace. I would have slept better. I would have been a better mom, a better wife. I would have been just overall a better human, although I don't think I would have listened. That's a theme in my life.
That's great. That's very authentic and truthful, which is great because that is the healthier part of the 3 when they are actually genuinely honest and truthful and authentic. So, yay, kudos, right? Okay, so now you're still a 3, right? And the wounded child's still going to rise up periodically. It could be throughout the day, it could be throughout the month, it could be, seasonal, but it's going to rise up, in different places and for different reasons. Sometimes really loud, sometimes really, quiet. It feels a little scared. So moving forward, you still have your business, you're still growing your business, you're still a mom. So, what do you envision? Like, maybe picture one thing that pops up often that you can feel that wounded child being like, "Oh, we have to do something. We have to embellish something. We have to boast about what we've done because we're afraid that no one sees our worth and value." What situation is that typically, and how do you think moving forward you can bring that beloved child in? What would that even look like?
Yeah, I think that putting people in place in my life that support me and who I am at my best and at my worst has been the best part of that. And I see we call it our North Star in our business, but if I ever get off track or I forget the why behind why we do what we do, then the people on our team are remarkable at saying, okay,
Mm.
but is this in alignment with our North Star? And so, just recently we've made a lot of changes. And before, I've been very money focused, very money driven.
Yeah.
And now I don't do anything based on financial data. I do everything based on what would be the best for the people's lives that I want to help because I've already been given everything in life that I could have ever wanted. And
Yeah.
so my purpose now on this planet is to help other people have that life too. So as I'm striving and I get to the point where I get a little stressed, I'm like, oh well, financials aren't this month, and the goal wasn't hit. If I get back to that place, the team is great about listening, but they're also great about calling me out. And I think that having people in your life that can do that with grace and that you can accept as you grow is the most important part of growing in your personal life and your professional life.
Well, and the good news is for a 3, that is very, very hard to do if you're only operating in the wounded child. So if the wounded child is only operating, it's not going to be very accepting of that kind of feedback. But the beloved child is. The beloved child knows I am secure in the truth of who I am and that I'm loved and I'm valued beyond my accomplishments. Therefore, when someone gives feedback, it doesn't alter that I'm loved and I'm valued. It just enables me to see more of what's going on to then make better choices in the future. But the wounded child's going to be like, oh my gosh, they're seeing me. I'm exposed. I'm going to be thought of as worthless. And so that's a really great indication of how you're moving forward in such a healthy way. And so I just kind of wanted to reflect that back to you. Okay, so now we're going to show how. So we were talking about how your 3 has those 2 parts, but you have 4 more parts that are called connecting types or connecting parts. And this is your 2 wings, so the type 2 and the type 4, and your Enneagram path types, which are 9 and 6. Now you're familiar with these, but we've set it up in a way that is a little bit different than how a lot of people learn about these wings and the Enneagram paths. So a lot of times, especially with the Enneagram paths, people think, oh, I go in one direction under stress and one direction in growth. And actually, that's Enneagram kind of 101. But Enneagram 102 or 2.0 is really that we use both our Enneagram paths in healthy to unhealthy ways. And so I want to paint a picture of what that looks like and see if it kind of captures your like aha moment. So, and we do the same with our wings as well. And we use both wings now, sometimes a lot for one versus the other. Sometimes some people very little, et cetera, et cetera. But we do use all of these connecting parts. Sometimes we're just not as aware. And the more we become aware, the more we can actually use and access them, hopefully in healthy ways, but also, again, navigate them, guide them, lead them, mentor the unhealthy or the less healthy parts towards health. So when your wounded child is activated and your wings and your paths want to come online and give advice, so to speak. So this is that part of us that is like, well, part of me feels this and part of me feels that, and I'm torn here and I'm torn there. So when the wounded child is activated, basically driving the bus of your life, it's like trying its best. It's like 8 years old, right? And it's like all over the place. Well, then your connecting parts are also activated in this way. And so the two wing might show up and let's see. Yeah. Are you dependent on people's opinions and insert into their lives as being like the hero? Like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to insert myself. You're going to be able to depend on me and really kind of have that hero status. That's how the two part of your heart might show up. Or the type 4 wing believes that no one will understand how difficult it is to maintain your image and achievement. So that kind of that melancholy, no one gets me, no one's understanding how hard this is. And so kind of a little bit more melancholy, sorrowful tone inside. And then the 6th part might worry about what could go wrong and avoid trying for feel of failure. So it's like, okay, there are all these reasons we can fail. We aren't moving forward. And then the 9 avoids self-awareness at all and remains or to remain productive and on task. So the type 9 is like, hey, let's just shut this all down. Let's numb out. Like, this is just too much. And that just makes it really hard for the 3 when this wounded child is popping up and you've got all of these other connecting parts chiming in. You're being pulled to the 9 of not doing anything, numbing out. You're being pulled to the 6 and thinking of all the worst case scenarios. The 2 is like, well, we just better help everyone because then maybe that will help our image. And the 4 is like, no one gets me. So does this sound true? Do you feel this pull from all these parts?
Every single day. I honestly sometimes hate that I know what I know about the Enneagram now because just the other day I did something and I was like, oh, that was not best version of myself. When someone asked about the company, I went into, let me be the hero, let me help you. And I haven't done that in a while. And I'm like, no, let them be the hero. Like, what is their story? And so reading this though, I'm like, yes. And it makes sense why my number one pet peeve with my husband is that he doesn't need he doesn't need accomplishments. And so he's happiest when we can avoid self-awareness and that we don't have to be productive or on task. And so I'm over here like, I need you to care more. I need us to be structured. So it's so funny to see that. That's why I get frustrated with him. That's literally our only argument. So
I'm assuming he's a 9.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. Yeah. And so, but here's what's going to be awesome is that when your wounded child, the type 3 part of your heart, rises up and is driving that bus, and then all of a sudden, all the kids on the back of the bus, when you're with a bus driver that is not doing a good job, you're not doing well either, right? So they're all trying to figure things out and they're bringing in their perspective. They're trying to get things figured out, but from their core motivations, their vantage points. And so, yeah, the 9 part of your heart is going to be like, you know what? Just stop, just chill. Like, it's just not going to work. So why even try, and the 3 part of your heart is like, stop, like, no, that's not helpful, And so we're really pulled in all these different directions. But what's so great about the Enneagram, though, at the same time frustrating, like you said, it's both where, oh man, I now see everything. I see like my not so great parts. But what if that was actually the greatest gift of the Enneagram? Because think about your wounded child's driving, right? And it's trying its best. Now think about the wounded child for a second. No one is at the wheel and it's just trying its best to keep you moving forward, but it is ill-equipped and it does tend to get you off track and into a ditch time and time again. And then you throw up your arms like, how did I get here again? Am I not learning anything? I mean, that's usually what we do to ourselves, right? But what if we knew, okay, the beloved child's on the bus, why it's been sleeping in the back or not engaged, who knows? But now we can call the beloved child to the front because it is there now. And the beloved child can move forward and get the wounded child out of the driver's seat, the wounded child doesn't really want to be there. Like it's just trying its best. But when the beloved child, that adult part of our heart, the mature part, gets in that seat, everyone calms down. And how we can do that is by putting rumble strips in our life. So, like, when we're driving on the highway and we hit those rumble strips that make that noise to alert us that you're veering off course. Well, with the Enneagram and like what we're doing right here, these are rumble strips. These are those aha moments of, oh, I'm doing it again, or oh, it's happening, but not for shaming purposes. When you hit the rumble strip on the highway, if we shame ourselves into it, basically that's like us taking the wheel and flipping it into the ditch, right? And we do that in our inner life. But what if we saw it different? What if we were like, oh, hey, yep, I'm going in that direction again, or I can see I'm veering off course, but have compassion and be kind. And that beloved child taking the wheel and going, hey, it's okay. And when it does, then these connecting parts will totally change and transform. So instead of the two trying to insert itself and showing that everyone, I can be the hero and help you and nurture you, now the two gifts you the ability to recognize needs and offer help as a coach and mentor. So the two, instead of inserting themselves into people's lives, it's going to offer. It's going to be humble. It's like, hey, I'm here for you. I see that you have a need. We can accomplish it if you so choose. You just let me know. So that would be a very healthy part of the two in your inside you. The four is going to gift you with creativity, emotional authenticity, and depth. The six part of your heart is going to gift you with the courage to move forward, to be a team player, and to accept failures. And the nine part is going to gift you with the ability to bring your true self to the forefront and to find rest. So it's accomplishing, it's moving forward, but it's doing in this peaceful, serenity, calm manner. So think of a time when you have seen yourself move from the wounded parts into the beloved parts. What has that been and what did it look like?
I publicly share this a lot, but I suffered through postpartum depression after two of my sons, and then just recently with my we have five kids with my fifth, my daughter, and it's been 18 months of a struggle. And I wish we'd had this talk again. I don't know that I would have listened 18 months ago because I knew all the things, but I couldn't get out of the wounded child. And so
Yeah.
as someone that struggles with depression, it is such, I say that my life is black and white in those moments.
Yeah.
And I strive to live my life in vibrant color, but I don't always know how to get back to there.
Yeah.
And so I'm living and breathing this right now, and it feels so good to be back to who I'm supposed to be. But I think that's kind of important too, is that depression can sneak in on you and make you think that you're the only the wounded child, that there's not that other side of you anymore. And so it's nice to feel like the beloved child again. I always have been.
Absolutely. And I think it's a really great point, chemically speaking and biologically, by going through, delivering a baby and postpartum depression, your body is chemically doing its thing. And so thank you for bringing that up, because I don't want those that are watching this to assume, oh, well, just do this and that, and then all of a sudden you're fine. Like there are things that sometimes we have to get additional help for, and that is perfectly fine and wonderful. I know for me, that's how my family is. We need extra help, especially through like medication, and that's just the way it is. But I'm so thankful that I have things that can help me to keep me in that beloved child path a little bit easier when I didn't have those things to help me to get kind of to baseline. So thank you for sharing that, because that is again, so needed in this day and age, that conversation to be had of like, you know what, sometimes our bodies are really struggling and we need to take care of our body. We need to make sure it has all that it needs to ensure that it can be its healthy self and to have the mindset that's right. So thank you for sharing that. What are some areas that you see in the beloved child now that you're kind of feeling back, in that space? What are you seeing pop up the most and where?
I am naturally an extrovert, although during COVID times, right, we all had to become introverts. And so I had just had a baby, and then I got pregnant around COVID, and then had another baby. And so I took on this persona of I'm an introvert, and because that's what everyone was saying. And I was like, yeah, me too. I don't like people, but I always have. I've always been an extrovert. And so I am finally stepping back into that role. And I've joined a local gym. I'm actually that girl that's obsessed with CrossFit right now. And I'm getting back on social media. I kind of went ghost for a while. And I am in love with this family and this community of people, like hundreds of people in all of their walks of life, because I'm allowed to see that I get to see their needs. And it's just been really nice to be a part of people again and not feel like I have to be boastful or anything like that, just to be like it says, emotionally authentic, like have that authenticity about myself.
Mhm.
And I live for encouraging people. And so that's been another great way that I get to encourage people. And as a team, as you know, our team has grown over the years. You know, as a boss, you hire people and you fire people, and it's really difficult. Sometimes you feel like you're a failure if things like that happen or if someone quits. And so it's been really beautiful to see our team as a whole unit recently, and how we all play together and that we work with each other's strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, so I love like everything I'm hearing, I can see all of these different parts pop up, right? So, you got that two part that's like they're the big connectors, and same with sixes. They're like, let's connect, let's be together. But the six part of your heart is it's not about just me anymore. It's about us. Whether that's family us, whether it's team us, or it's like my audience, my community, yeah, us. And the three then focuses on that. And then the four brings the creativity and the joy to connect, and the two to help and to nurture those people. And then the nine is just going to support you and not doing it in the frenetic way, but in the way that just is more true to who you are. So that just to me sounds like, wow, that is such a joy to see and hear how God has brought you into that part again. But so from this time together, what are some things that you might take away that you're like, okay, so I wouldn't have maybe listened back then, but now I have this information. How do you see this helping you maybe in the next, thing that pops up that kind of wants to derail you?
I love that you brought our faith into this, just because I don't always align those two things. I think sometimes I put them as separate.
Sure.
Um, and it's been really nice to see how my faith can align with this. I'm doing the Bible recap this year with our church and trying my best to read the Bible every single day. And so that's been really wonderful. And I'm going to take that with me, is that they're not separate. They're actually one and the same. And God made me this way. And so this is something I can enjoy being. So thank you for bringing that up. And I'm going to love me more. I know that I'm a lot for a lot of people. I I know that I'm like, socializing is my favorite thing to do. And so, but instead of just like hating that part of myself and saying, oh, I wish I would shut up, it is who I am. And I'm okay with that now. And so people will love me for that, or they will hate me for that. And
Yeah.
that doesn't say anything about me personally. So
Right.
I need to just love that version of myself, instead of saying like, oh, I'm the worst version of a 3 today. Just how can I be better every day? And how can I love the version of who I was, even if it wasn't my best day?
Absolutely. And so what I love about that is, so when we look at the core longing, this is the message our heart longs to hear. So for the type three, it's for someone to say and mean, and it's actually true, that you are loved for simply being you, and that you're not having to achieve and do all these things and look a certain part, but just you. I mean, that is what is actually true in the Bible, that God knows you way better than you know yourself. All the highs and the lows, He created you to reflect Him and His glory. But we also have these other liabilities and things that trip us up. And for the three, that's really hard to see it because it feels so exposing. And the mind wants to say, see, I can't be loved because look at all this. And He says, not only do I see it, I know it better than you. And I pursued you with salvation because I want to be with you. I want to love you for just who you are. And that is where real transformation comes from, because it's not about all of our types. It's not about attaining our core longing here on earth, though we're always trying, right? So as me as a nine, I'm like trying so hard to like have peace and harmony, that maybe I matter. I matter to God because He loves me. He created me. It's not based on if someone else thinks I matter, right? And so the more I can remind myself of that truth, the more I get out of the wounded patterns and into the beloved patterns. And the same with you as a three. the more you remind the beloved part reminds you, no, wait, I am loved for simply being me, my authentic self. He sees all of me and came and pursued me. That is where real transformation happens, because then when other people chime in and they don't like you or they love you, you're like, oh, well, that's not so great and that's awesome, but I already know that I'm loved and like I can be secure there. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's going to be helpful for me as I think learning about other people's enneagrams, as I said, is that I see someone and I feel that they don't like me or that our energies don't align, and I'm just trying to take in what number they are and how I can finagle the conversation so that I can change the script. Like I don't have to be that anymore, and so that's a feel good feeling.
Well, hey, I just really want to thank you for participating in this coaching and just being open and vulnerable. I know that that can be scary for any of us, but thank you so much for just going there with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to let everyone else know that, again, this is Enneagram coaching. And if you guys have enjoyed this and you're like, I would love to give people these aha moments and for them to connect the dots so that when they move forward in life, just like today, it's like, oh, if I would have had this information or if I would have understood this, I may have been able to navigate my life in a totally different way. Then Enneagram coaching is right for you, because Enneagram coaching helps people to get on a better trajectory for themselves. And that's unpacking it all, the not so great parts of ourselves and the good, but always pointing to how we can transform in the goodness of Christ. And so we are hosting free webinars this week and next Monday, where I'm going to show you exactly what becoming an Enneagram coach is, what our course holds, and how we set you up for success, not just financial success, if that's what you want as an Enneagram coach, but also how to successfully coach others towards transformation and growth. So get a spot today at enneagramwebinar.com. It's a free webinar, show you all the ins and outs of our course so you can bless others as an Enneagram coach. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Casey, for being with us today. It was such a joy to be with you.
Yes, thanks, Beth.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.